Do. Just kidding. No. Just kidding. Well, that sounds weird. Loop through the other audio. I got this stuff going. Anyway, as soon as that's over, we'll get serious about things. Let me open up my YouTube and see what's going on in there. Give me liberty or give me death. You know, they never said, when thinking about that saying, who dies? You give me liberty or death. Death to you, death to me, death to everybody. Who knows? Could be either way, right? If you're fighting for your permission, your liberty, you might get death. However, those taking your liberty might be the ones they were talking about. You know what I'm saying? It's a party in here. It sure is. YOLO, mofos. Roger, A1. Unacceptable living in left field. And Val. And don't forget A1 steak sauce and James Dude. It is a party indeed. I forgot what I had lined up. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go. I don't even like the echo of these headphones. It's weird. Let's see. Kind of cotton mouth. Damn. Uh-oh, look. That proves it. I must work for the Zionists. It's a conspiracy. See me? I'm drinking the Jew coffee. It's because it's delicious. No, I didn't get paid for that. Oh, yeah. We got a minute of that music going on. My intro, man. I forgot about that. Oh, you know what? I'm live on Rumble too. Let's see what's going on over there in the Rumble town. There's no one over there. There's 2 people watching. Congratulations. Thank for all 2 of you all coming out to see the show. I appreciate you guys, especially you people. What do I mean by you people? I mean the ones that are watching and listening. Oh, yeah. Does that make me a Zionist? I'm just kidding. I'm not. I'm not a Zionist. But I like the coffee. I hate the company, but I like that specific coffee. I don't drink other stuff because it all tastes like booty. This one's like chocolate milk. So yeah, sometimes I give the bad guys money. The corporations. I'm just kidding. I don't even know who works at Starbucks. Except for that purple-haired chick that was upset that I called her ma'am. She might have got mad at because I said chick. And welcome to Mountain High Time. I'm your host, DJ Ransom, the Freedomist, but you can just call me Ransom. And you are at the same place and the same time. That's Mountain High Time, right here on Revolution.Radio, which, by the way, I heard was having some trouble reaching their financial goals to stay on. which is weird because, it's a free speech platform that's listener supported. So that means y'all out there in Radio Land kind of being cheap. Just joking. I'm not calling you names. But if you like hearing free speech still on the airwaves, at least here in the U.S., then I would think about donating. Let me get rid of that. Makes me talk funny. Anyway, if you like free speech radio and you would like to keep it on air, then think about donating to the Patreon account there at Revolution.Radio, where the information never sleeps, or the internet never sleeps. Something. I'm so bad. I'm going to write that down and just tape it to my forehead here so I don't forget about it. The truth shall set you free. The truth shall set you free. I'm just kidding. It won't. Yeah. Okay. So we're live. But anyway, like I was saying, if you like this radio station and the people that are on it, the various different shows with different opinions, think about donating to Revolution.Radio. And also, if you'd like to keep me on the air, because this is my only job, there's a blue link down there. I think you guys know which one. And matter of fact, speaking of that, that's where we're going to start tonight. If I can get there. So let me see here. Yes. Thank you, Tim Yates, yesterday for dropping the bomb on us. Being a supporter. Bill Sibley, much appreciated. Let's see here. Who else do we got? Diane Mark, thank you very much. Anna Navarro, that's my girlfriend. That's weird. Oh, wait. That's because I was broken. She gave me $20. Let's see here. Susan Huff, thank you. Thank you for donating. Douglas Moore, Kusama Wardini, thank you very much from Southeast Asia. I appreciate the donation to keep me on air. Let's see. And Bill Sibley again. Thank you very much, sir. Stephanie Janzen. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just, for some reason, when it comes to names, that part of my brain just starts going tongue-tied. But anyway, thank you, all of you, for helping out around here and keeping the lights on and the internet paid for. I very much appreciate it. And we'll just get into tonight's random thoughts from a stoner on the internet. Just some random stoner on the internet that you're listening to in the Mountain High Time Zone. If I could find my pages, we'll look at it. Can you guys not see that? I'm going to share it with you. There it is. I'm sharing it. Capturing the evolution of life on Earth. Key moment revealed in ancient fossils, according to Science Tech Daily. Let me see my chat room there so I know what you get. Just in case you guys are trying to talk about me behind my eyeballs in the background there. I'm going to be paying attention, watching you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually not watching because, I'm doing this. So don't get butthurt because I didn't talk to you in the chat room. And I'm also listening to watching or reading, rather, if I could get any words straight, the Revolution.Radio chat, which you can go to on the Revolution.Radio tab and join in there and see what they're talking about or whatever. Or you can hang out with the cool people at Mountain High Time on YouTube in the chat room. That's where the real cool people are at. They said it's a party in there. I'm quoting them, not me. So YOLO mofo. Anyway, let's get into the news here. Capturing the evolution of life on Earth. Key moment revealed in ancient fossils. And they got a neat little AI generated photo there. Researchers have precisely dated ancient multicellular fossils to 565 million years ago, using volcanic ash layer as time markers. These findings, based on fossils from whales, not the ones that fish in the sea, but like the place, and similar sites worldwide, shed light on a significant period in Earth's history when complex life began flourishing after a global ice age. Should I put on the NPR voice? I think I should. Here we go. A new study precisely dates ancient multicellular fossils, uncovering key moments in Earth's history and the evolution of complex life after a global ice age. I'm just kidding. That's tiring. Research led by Curtin University has for the first time precisely dated some of the oldest fossils of complex multicellular life in the world, helping to track a pivotal moment in the history of Earth when the seas began teeming with new life forms after 4 billion years of containing only single-celled microbes. In other words, the Cambrian explosion. Explosion, if you know what I'm saying. Isn't it weird how everything on life, like people out there sometimes argue whether or not God is a man or a woman or a they or an it or like the universal field of consciousness or whatever new hippie stuff is being said in different ways. But think about this. I ask you, is not the evidence that God is definitely a man? And here's some of that evidence here, and I'm going to tell you why. It's not why you think. But they're talking about the Cambrian explosion here, 4 billion years of containing only single-celled microbes. They were they-thems. And then someone, a single brave something back then, decided, you know what? I'm bored. I think I'm going to penetrate. And that's what tells me God's a man, because everything about life revolves around penetration. Every aspect of life, I guarantee you I could turn it into a scenario where penetration is involved. I'm just kidding. I'm not. You can believe in whatever version of the Almighty you want to. I was just making a joke, and in my God, my all-knowing, all-seeing, all-encompassing part of the universe God must have a sense of humor because he gave me one, so... oh well, suck on that. Hey, let's go down here and get into some of the science. Located in Coed Cochrane Quarry in Wales, which contains the richest occurrence of shallow marine life in Britain, we used outfall from an ancient volcano that blanketed the animals as time markers to accurately date the fossils to 565 million years, accurate down to 0.1%, Mr. Clark said. With similar Ediacaran fossils found at sites around the world, including in Australia. Dating the fossils identifies them as being part of an ancient living community that developed as Earth thawed out from a global ice age. These creatures would in some ways resemble modern-day marine species, such as jellyfish, yet in other ways be bizarre and unfamiliar. Some appear fern-like, others like cabbages, whereas others resembled sea pens, whatever that is. Anyway, study co-author Professor Chris Kirkland, also from the Timescales of Mineral Systems Group at Curtin, said the fossils are named after the Iridicaria Hills in South Australia's Flinders Ranges, whatever that is, wherever that's at. Well, it's in Australia, obviously, because it said so. Anyway, I think a lot of the cool fossils are over there. Some of the oldest geologic formations are in Australia, if I'm not mistaken. But actually, if you think about it, this whole lump of dirt is the same age, so we're all ancient here. We're just scum on the rock. The fossils, including creatures like the disc-shaped I already messed that one up, huh? Aspadella Tyrannovicio. Oh, yeah, these names. Jeez, man. It's like you have to go to college or something to learn how to pronunciate. I'm just joking. Terra Novica. Is that how you say it? Maybe. Anyway, the fossils record the response of life to the thaw-out from a global glaciation, which shows the deep connection between geologic processes and biology, and probably the sun. Our study underscores the importance of understanding these ancient ecosystems in order to unravel the mysteries of Earth's past and shape our comprehension of life's evolution. Well, cool then, I guess. Let's go into more of this stuff. Now, I was reading this. Somebody sent this to me, and I'm still trying to find the original article. So if you have that, go ahead and send it to me, but we'll pretend like it's not from ancient origins for just a minute. New evidence shows modern humans first arrived in China about 45,000 years ago. A new study presents evidence showing that Homo sapiens, modern humans, arrived in China approximately 45,000 years ago, or several thousand years earlier than previously suspected. The original human settlers to the region. Now, see, this is where I I'm like, what? They mean Homo sapien or us, or Cro-Magnon, I guess, showed up 45,000 years ago there. But they don't put that. They just put modern humans, Homo sapiens. So we have to realize that there were already modern humans living there, as we find in the DNA records called Denisova now, or Neanderthal, right? Because we know that those other humans were also in these areas for hundreds of thousands of years. So the idea that humans, modern humans, just showed up, because obviously all of them were modern of their time because they lived then. Anyway, talking about us, an international team of researchers who study human evolution, led by Paleolithic archaeologist Xinji, I think, Yang, from Chinese Academy of Scientists, completed a thorough re-examination of artifacts collected from a long neglected and nearly forgotten archaeological site known as Xinyu, which is located in China's Shaanxi province. A fresh study just published in the Journey of Nature, Ecology, and Evolution uncovered that the true age of prehistoric human settlement, which is now recognized as the oldest Homo sapiens site ever found on Chinese soil. Our new study identifies the initial Upper Paleolithic archaeological assemblage of Xiyu site in North China, dating to 45,000 years ago. That included blade technology, tanged and hafted, I don't even know, projectile points, long distance obsidian transfer, and the use of perforated graphite discs. Cool, man. There's only one weird thing about this, so you got to think about this. The papers that I previously showed you about ghost species in sub-Saharan Africa are dated at 40 to 47,000 years ago. So they're saying they're a breeding event with another hominid species separated from us from about 650 to 700,000 years ago, reintegrated into the Homo sapien population, if you want to put it that way, made a new admixture in sub-Saharan Africa. And that's why sub-Saharan Africans have genes that no one else has in the entire planet. Not in Asia, not in Europe, not in the Americas, nowhere. But they're not the only ones. It's just that there's such a blurry line between being able to talk about different species and the admixtures after that they kind of circle around things by saying stuff. But anyway, think about that. This would be another time, obviously, around this time, somewhere between 40 and 50,000 years ago. Not only did Neanderthal go extinct, but so did Denisovan and these other ghost species that they talk about in the human genome. Which means that it seems like there was very little of each group, and that's why there was a necessity to mix and have offspring with the only available other humans that they came across. Now think about this. There's people going all over the world just about right here, 45,000 years ago, coming across these other species at that time, most likely, and then they're gone. Which is weird, because that tells you that our species seem to have been going around, right, the planet long before everyone else was, even though they don't date our species that way. But I think there's some hokey dating on some of this, so we don't really know when exactly, just thousands of years more or less, based on fossils and DNA evidence. But it seems like humans aren't the only one, and I want to put an idea out here on this one. This is an article from The Guardian that talks about flowers giving up on sex, basically. Flowers giving up on scarce insects and evolving to self-pollinate. Now, what's weird to me is that they're assuming that this is some kind of evolution. Okay, so let's read the article here, and then I'll tell you my ideas on it. Flowers are giving up on pollinators and evolving to be less attractive to them as insect numbers decline, researchers have said. A study has found that the flowers of field pansies growing near Paris are 10% smaller and produce 20% less nectar than flowers growing in the same field 20 to 30 years ago. They also less frequently were visited by insects. Our study shows that pansies are evolving to give up on their pollinators. The study authors and researchers at the French National Center for Scientific Research, they are evolving towards self-pollination, where each plant reproduces with itself, which works in the short term, but may well limit their capacity to adapt to future environmental changes. Plants produce nectar for insects, and return insects transport pollen between plants. This mutually beneficial relationship has formed over millions of years of coevolution. Now, let's stop right there. They assume that it took millions of years of evolution to do this, while in the same article, they're telling you that the same plants are evolving within decades. Okay, so in one hand, they're telling you it takes millions of years for this interconnected network of insects and plants, and that the plants slowly evolved along with the bugs to do a specific thing. But at the same time, they're also telling you that these flowers are evolving within an amount of decades because of the scarcity of bugs. And some of the reasons that they're giving in here is pesticides, destruction of habitat, etc. And, I haven't read the whole thing, but probably even some global warming or something in there. Let's see. Insect declines have been reported by studies across Europe. One study on German nature reserves found that from 1989 to 2016, the overall weight of insects caught in traps fell by 75%. So right here, they're just talking about how it was when they looked at it, whenever they observed it. Now, I'm thinking, what if things on the earth periodically kill everything? So even the insects, even things that have been around for millions and millions of years, basically get wiped out in just tiny, tiny amounts of numbers. And for decades, there's not enough pollinators or bugs because some kind of volcanic event, impact, maybe a solar step down or something like that, during the large amounts of cycles that we've had since these creatures allegedly first emerged into the niches that they started in supposedly millions of years of evolution. But at the same time, maybe it ain't millions of years, and maybe life can change within decades. And exactly what they're talking about right here. Who's to say that these plants don't periodically already do this phenomenon, which is akin to masturbation, right? They're not having sex with the other flowers because no pollinators are coming by. So what happens in, if there's like 5 or 6 years of straight winters, where there's very, very harsh colds, and everybody that deals with that notices that one bug or another bug or something will do really good that year. But other things won't even be around. You'll be like, where's that? Where's this? I haven't seen that. The same thing happens with, like the stuff that infects your gardens and stuff, like roly-polies. Like if you have a really good year with no bugs and all your plants grow out and they're nice and they're beautiful, and then they all get chopped down, and then the next year there's more biomass for those roly-polies and things to come in and munch. And so the next year you plant, and then you're out there wondering why there's squash bugs and roly-polies on everything. It's because in the prior year, when the food was good, they laid seeds everywhere in hopes that next year would be just as good or better, or even if it wasn't, some of those seeds and not seeds, but eggs can last through another winter and then pop up, and then all of a sudden when conditions are right, boom, all that stuff's back. So I kind of disagree with this article. I'm not saying I'm a geneticist or anything, but my theory is that some of these plants and animals going through time can change within decades and adapt immediately to their new circumstances. Life finds a way, as they say. All right, next article. Speaking of, let's get back into the genetics. So as I was saying, geneticists are saying that there is a ghost species in sub-Saharan Africa, and I talk about that's not the only one. So there's other populations of people on Earth where they say that they have a ghost species. In other words, there's genetic material introduced into the Homo sapien line from an archaic human, or hominid, excuse me. Either one. I think either one works. But here, Earth's last cannibal tribe, one of the last hunter-gatherer Stone Age people, and kind of the stuff that they do there. Last cannibal tribe butcher people possessed by demons, then they eat them. Hunter-gatherers from Papua, I don't know how you say that actually, in Indonesia, who first encountered Western civilization and less than 50 years ago. And they still live in a Stone Age lifestyle marked by ritual cannibalism. Unnatural deaths, such as accidents or murders, are a matter for the police and coroners in our society, but in the ancient laws of the Korawi people of Papua, Indonesia, unnatural deaths are investigated by a tribal shaman or a witch doctor. After a shaman has investigated the incident, he will often order an act of ritual cannibalism to fix the problem. And let me see if I can say this right here. Korawai believe that shadowy evil spirits called Kakaui I don't know how to say it, live alongside us, sometimes taking possession of human bodies in order to carry out demonic acts. When the tribe member dies unnaturally, is often attributed to the actions of Kakua, maybe, explains the cultures and peoples of the world's pocket. Anyway, so my point being that these are ideas and technology straight out of the Stone Age, a long, long time ago, right? For every other group of human on Earth. But they somehow living in a bubble off the coast of Indonesia, and they're not the only ones. Here's the Adamans tribe, right? And this article is an older article from 2018 where an American was killed in India by an enraged Adamans. So an American man has been killed, they say, by an endangered tribe in India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Now, if you don't know who these guys are, they are a Stone Age tribe that lives off the coast of India. And somehow they've just been sitting there for thousands of years with no one noticing them. They don't have boats. They don't have anything past spears and bows and arrows. They're living in a Stone Age culture. But whenever we got genetic material from these tribes there, we found out that even though the Spanish that found them nicknamed them basically blacks or small black person, they called them negritas, they are not at all related to sub-Saharan Africans. And a lot of people would be assuming that because they look black, that they would be related to sub-Saharan Africans. But when they DNA tested them, they found out they're mostly more closely related to the people of India, right over the water from them, which kind of makes sense. And it shows you where some of the darker skin phenotype in India came from. When they did genetic tests on them, they found out that these islanders have no Neanderthal and no Denisovan. That means that they did not ever come across those other humans in their line of ancestry. However, DNA shows that they too have some kind of ghost species that contributed a large amount of DNA, being some of the oldest people on Earth. Somehow, weirdly, with all of the, the Aryan Indus Valley and all of the empires that followed that were around India, no one came across these guys just sitting out there living their lives, doing their thing. Genetic study of the Andaman Islanders uncovers new human ancestor. Some Asians possess genes that aren't Homo sapien, Neanderthal, or Denisovan, but another human species altogether, India study finds. Prehistoric species of men apparently weren't too finicky with their mating habits. A study done by an Indian to detect the migration of hominids in Asia throughout genetics was small but had startling results. The discovery of a new human ancestor, at least for some Southeast Asians. This mysterious hominid coexisted with Neanderthals and Denisovans, but was different species. No remains of it have been found yet, just like in sub-Saharan Africa. Just distant echoes of genes in the Andaman Islanders existing today. The traces of mysterious humanoids' DNA were found in 10 islanders belonging to the Jarawa, not Chihuahua, Jarawa, and the Onge tribes, who inhabit the Andaman Islands, deep in the Bay of Bengal. The sequences were compared with genetic sequences of 60 people from mainland India populations with different ethnic histories and with publicly available data from other populations, the scientists explain. The study results are definitive evidence that the human ancestor Homo heidelbergensis gave rise to more lineages than just Neanderthal or Denisovan. The study also supports the theory that all Asian and Pacific peoples existing today share a single origin, say its authors, led by Mayuk Mandal. They all stem from a single wave of prehistoric expansion out of Africa, they claim. See, this is where things start not making sense again, contradicting an earlier theory of two independent waves of migrations. So now they're kind of going back on their different waves of people. Anyway, the research produces a new branch of the tree for human evolution, starting with the unknown ancestor some 600,000 years ago. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals split off from that ancestor, and Denisovans later split off from Neanderthal branch. Now, this is exactly the same kind of terminology that they use for sub-Saharan Africans. An unknown ancestor, a ghost species with years like 600,000 splitting off from the human population, or the Neanderthal tree, or the Denisovan branch of human ancestry. But what they never do is this the same ghost species as in sub-Saharan Africa? Well, they don't comment on that ever in these articles. Later, in the course of history, Homo sapiens who were left Africa mated with Neanderthals, members of that human-Neanderthal mix, continued on to Asia, where they split into a host of peoples. And at least some of those peoples, the ancestors of the Andaman Islanders, checked into the study, mated with a third ancestral species. Flash forward to now, the only population not to contain any Neanderthal or Denisovan genes, insofar as that have been tested, are Africans. In other words, the interspecies sex with both happened after the split between early Homo sapiens who left Africa and those who remained. So it's so bizarre that people think they know who they are. So, and this kind of goes to also that the black phenotype doesn't only come from Africa, or didn't only originate in Africa. Evidently, it originated also in Asia with people that are totally unrelated to the people that live in Africa. That's pretty trippy, don't you think? Yeah, Piltdown Man, right? The con of the so-called missing link that they perpetrated on the public for I don't know how many decades, that turned out to be a baboon's jaw glued to a human skull, because they keep trying to push this idea that there's only one place where mankind came from. And the more that we look at it, we see that the DNA and the bones are showing us that there was a wide range of hominid and apes roaming the earth, from Europe to Asia to Africa, and maybe man has no single place where it came from. Immune properties in ancient DNA found in isolated villages might benefit humanity today. Genetic diversity among hunter-gatherers of Indonesia, including the last significant vestige of DNA from an extinct human cousin. Now, a lot of people are getting into this because now it's possible to determine what kind of diseases and illnesses that you may have based on how much or how less of archaic DNA you have. In other words, that just like when the New World met the Old World there, a lot of diseases had not went around to the native populations, and we transferred those diseases to them. But populations like Africa and Asia and Europe had already gone through these diseases. So they were basically immune to, or, they weren't going to get as sick. It's not going to wipe out massive portions of the population. However, the people in the Americas didn't come across some of these diseases, and it wiped out millions. Now, when we're talking about what happened between 50,000 years ago and 40,000 years ago, when we know that there were breeding events from different hominid species in different places all around the world happening between that 10,000 year period, and then those other species disappear off the planet, I think it's fair to say that we may have killed millions of people that were in ultra small populations. I mean, think about it. What if there was only 100,000 Denisovans alive at one time, and they had a complex, system of how they talked to each other and socialized, and Then all of a sudden they come across human beings of a different kind, and boom, they're all sick. Boom, there's barely any of them. That might explain why a lot of them disappeared. But to get into what this means for today, if you remember the pandemic that we recently had, a lot of studies showed that most of the people that got the most severely sick had up to, like 30% of those people that were really, I think it was like 33% of the people that got the most severely sick in Italy turned out to have a bunch of more than average Neanderthal archaic DNA, which led them to think that maybe that's why they were susceptible to it. Now, if you're a weirdo in a think tank somewhere, and the question I also have, is there any people on this earth that are 100% Cro-Magnon? Or is there any people on this earth that are Homo sapien 100%? Or I guess it wouldn't be Homo sapien. That's why I'm going to use the word Cro-Magnon, because Homo sapien infers everyone on earth now. All of the admixtures, including all of the different species of hominids that are out there. And that is Homo sapiens. So an admixture species. So is there any place on this earth where there is a pure Cro-Magnon type person that had mixed? So even Cro-Magnon, I'm sure, judging by some of the DNA papers that they've done, had already mixed with Neanderthal to some degree, like 200,000 years ago. So there's a lot of humping going on, a lot of mixing. Every time humanoids come across each other, boom, they're doing it again. They're doing it again. And like I said, everything about human civilization and life on Earth has to do with penetration. Face of Homo longi reconstructed. Now, if you don't know who Homo longi is, he's also referred to as Dragon Man. So a Brazilian anthropologist has reconstructed the face of an archaic human species, Homo longi, from a well-preserved skull discovered in northeast China in the 1930s. This is the one with the big eyebrow ridges. So it looks like, not like a Neanderthal. It looks more like the round skull of a Cro-Mag, but with the eyebrow ridges and chin of like Neanderthal. So it was a different looking human being that was living at that time. But anyway, Homo longi is an extinct species of the genus Homo that lived in Asia during the Middle Pleistocene. Nicknamed Dragon Man, the species was identified from a nearly complete skull dated to 148,000 years ago. The fossil was discovered in 1933 when a bridge was built over the Chungo River in Harbin City. I'm not even going to try to say this. Heilongjiang province. Probably not how you say it. Because of its unsystematic recovery, the long time interval information about the exact site, the fossil layer was lost. But, a lot of people are theorizing that you might be looking at Denisovan. And, that's very interesting because, no offense to anybody, but this does look like an Aboriginal person of Australia or some of the Polynesian islands. Not the over, big ridges, but the overall look right here. And we know that Denisovan has a large amount of DNA contributed to Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands all the way down to Australia and the Aboriginals there, being from a non-sub-Saharan African source. Anyway, that's kind of a trippy thought to, like you came across this dude in the woods and, he's smart and he's cool and he shows you what's going on in his neck of the woods. And then he brings you back to his village. And guess what? There's some honeys there. There's some good looking honeys with some full chests and big backs. But, they got a little eyebrow ridge. But you know how guys are. They'll be like, well, I'll take one for the team. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, speaking of which, living DNA. If you would like to contribute to my personal project, I was going to do a show that talks about my ancestry because, as far as I know, it's kind of in question, part of it. And then, I also want to find out how much archaic DNA I have specifically, and then talk about that. And, that gives you a good idea of where your ancestors were, who they were humping, stuff like that. So that ought to be interesting. The problem is I'm a poor dude and I don't have an extra $100 to get that. So if you'd like to donate to that, if you think that's something interesting to find out, you can order one for yourself or you can help me order mine. And I was going to do a show talking about that. Please and thank you. Anyway, hominid carpenters, cattle cults, and other top world archaeological stories of 2023. 500,000 years ago, before our species even began to emerge, somebody in what is today Zambia built a structure out of wood, notching the logs so that they would fit firmly. If that interpretation is correct, it changes everything we know about hominids could do. Advanced construction was not on our list of expectations for them. Turkey brings the story of an unexpected fossil monkey. American brings spy satellite. Oh, yeah. And by the way, think about this. A fossil monkey and other ape fossils have been found in Europe. Weird, huh? Even though they're supposed to all come from Africa. But I have a feeling that they only have like 1 or 2% of the picture when it comes to knowing what was going on in the past because, well, let's face it, fossils are rare. And fossils only tell you what happened at that particular time in that particular place and doesn't tell you the other 99% of information and story that was going on around the world at that time. So it's just a little keyhole idea. It's like getting 1 pixel out of an entire, 4K television and trying to watch that 1 pixel and tell everybody you know what was going on. We know some things because, the fossil shows that, but trying to infer other things or tell you what was going on or what people were, the most advanced people were or the least advanced people were at any time is kind of a joke. So Turkey brings the story of an unexpected fossil monkey. America brings spy satellite images from the Cold War, and Ukraine begins a cave where people had been hiding for 6,000 years. Most recently, Jews hiding from the Nazis. So let's get into these cool stories. And if you're on Mountain High Time, you can see the pictures that come with it. So here, 500,000 years ago, hominids built notch structure in Zambia. So that would really throw things on its head if that were true, and maybe it is. By a spectacular waterfall in what is today Zambia, archaeologists discovered a notched wooden structure that they believe is 500,000 years old. So, wow, that's pretty cool. Let's go to 10,000 years. Earliest baskets in Europe. In southern Spain's Cave of the Bats, starting at about 10,000 years ago, people buried their dead with stunningly crafted baskets that would shame the finest arts and crafts markets of today. They also made stunning sandals, ditto. Anyway, let's see, what time is it? Okay, so we got about 17 more minutes here on Revolution.Radio before we take a 5-minute break. So let's get further into some of these cool stories from 2023, which I meant to do a few weeks ago, but I thought today would be a good day to do it. How about that? Poidrabard flies over Syria, and he saw Roman forts. Yes, he did. And then during the Cold War, American spy satellites passing over Syria to take pictures that have finally been declassified, and it turns out that there were more forts than pilots had thought. Yes, there were hundreds of them, and it turns out Father Antone's interpretation of what he was seeing was all wrong, and we're seeing those cool forts there on the TV. 8.7 million years ago, fossil ape in Turkey makes monkey of theories. Yes, our species emerged in Africa? ? Much of the rest of it is up for grabs. And fossil ape, wow, who writes these things? Antediluvius Turkey has trashed existing theory by existing 8.7 million years ago in Turkey, which cast darkness on where hominid line emerged. That referring to everything ape, including us, if you didn't know that. When ancient Rome tried to tame nature. That could be more fun than a reenactment of a naval battle on a hill. Not planning it, one guessed based on the results of a Roman doing that very thing in Pergamon, which today is Turkey. This is what happens when you carelessly divert a brook. Anyway, what we're looking at is like a really old big arroyo and dam, and it looks like they flooded themselves. Child buried with stunning jewelry around 9,000 years ago in southern Jordan. A young girl died and was buried in a crouched position on her left side, and with that turned out to be around 2,500 beads, which turn out, based on reconstructions, to have been extraordinarily multi-road necklace, including exotic imported beads. Cool. 8,000 years ago, proto-blueprints. Hold on. I think I need some more Java here. I'm starting to get tongue-tied. There we go. And a little stuttering medication. Yeah. All right. Where were we? Proto-blueprints carved into stone. How exactly did prehistoric people make structures so big you can only see them from the air? Read here and find out. What structures, you ask? Unhappily, the answer is mega traps. So vast that they could catch whole herds at a time. Why they wanted to do that? Well, we don't know. Well, of course we do. This is the beginning of 8,000 years ago is the beginning of what we know of as domestication of animals. And not only that, think about the Younger Dryas period when you had Clovis man pushing herds, like lots, hundreds of thousands of animals, carving them up. They must have had a giant population to do that kind of manufacturing, chopping up all these super large bison. And I'm not talking about the bison of today. The bison of their era were 3 or 4 times larger, bigger, thicker, stronger, faster, and with bigger, more menacing horns and hooves. I mean, think about that. Yet, Clovis man was pushing them off cliffs, cutting them up, and doing all kinds of manufacturing to feed what seems to be a massive population, but then they died, and they disappeared. Anyway, so that's probably what some of these people 8,000 years ago were doing with these blueprints, were figuring out how they could capture animals to eat them, mass slaughter them, and or domesticate them. That's just my opinion, that last part, but that's about the right time, I would think. 20,000 years ago, a lady loses a pendant. About 20,000 years ago, a woman in Siberia had a pendant made of an elk tooth. She wore it for a long time, then maybe she lost it or died, but in any case, the pendant became imbued with her DNA, and that is how we know it belonged to a woman. And here's a picture of a pierced deer tooth discovered from the Denisova cave, and that's where you get the name Denisovan, as out of that same cave, because some hermit named Dennis lived there, and they just named everything after him. Weird, huh? Anyway, 86,000 years ago, Surprise Cave of Monkeys. Right now, the state of thinking is that all non-Africans stem from what modern humans exist from Africa starting about 50,000 years ago. See, modern humans, I'd leave Africa as much as 200,000 years ago. Somebody is really not good at typing stuff. I mean, I'm not even that good, but whoa, they didn't even try on this article. Anyway, Africa as much as 200,000 years ago or even more, but their lineages went extinct. Traces of them are beyond rare. Yet there are on Laoton mountaintop where remains of modern humans from 86,000 years ago, extinct. They have no living descendants today. That would have been, like a whole different lineage of people that would have been tripped out, huh? What happened to them? The world may never know. 42,000 years ago. What does the fox say? I'm sorry, I had to do that. Foxes have been eating our garbage for longer than dogs have. We probably don't have pet foxes for much of the same reason as we don't have pet rats. Most of us don't anyway. But the fact is that synanthropism began far before sedentarism. So isn't it about time we get used to it? That was just Anyway, maybe 10,000 years ago, early 20th century pilots had quite the mania for flying over the Middle East, yet another pilot saw vast structures that turned out to be from the Neolithic. But in contrast, the kite megatraps, the mustatil, were ritual sites for a prehistoric cattle cult, the archaeologists concluded. All right, here's one. 1940s, Hebrews in the Galatian cave. How 2 men who hadn't met found themselves on track of the same Jews who had hidden from the Nazis in caves in Galatia, which people have been hiding in for 6,000 years. You ever wonder, like, if you go out hiking or something and you just take a crap that, 10,000 years ago from now, some nerdy science guy is going to come and he's going to excavate your poop, and they're going to be like, look, he was eating GMOs, we can tell, and he had butt cancer, and we think this, we don't know what this is, it's artificial, something's plastic in his poo-poo, so we know this was the time that it was, because it was after the introduction of plastics around the world, which has an overall worldwide layer, so we can time the point when everyone started getting cancer and dying. Oh, did I say that out loud? Anyway, the 12,000-year-old duck call and other top archaeology stories in Israel from 2023. It's cool stuff. But it looks like we got about 7 minutes, so let's just go through some more of these before we go on. But think about that. 12,000 years ago, somebody was out there quacking on his duck call. Quack, quack. Anyway, what's this one? Archaeology isn't the science of discovering our inner angel. Among the top general archaeology discoveries of 2023 are piles of hundreds of stones about the size of eggs from about 8,000 years ago. These were mass-manufactured slingshot stones. Bink, bink. They weren't made to hunt deer. The stones are the earliest known preparation for war in the southern Levant. So think about David and Goliath type stuff there. And if you've ever seen one of those guys take a patch of leather with a couple strings of leather and spin that thing around, creating massive amounts of RPM and then let it go, it might as well be the equivalent to a gun. So what are they going to do later? We need to ban rocks because, poor Goliath was just minding his own business when David popped him in the head with one of these rocks, and we got to stop assault rocks before this gets out of control and everybody starts hitting each other with assault rocks. So, I don't care if you have the right to bury your rocks. Stop throwing them, and we're going to arrest you for having illegal rocks. Yes, that was a stupid accent. Anyway, let's move on. About 4,000 years before that, people in the Hollow Valley made tiny little flutes from little bones, which they used as bird whistles to lure other less tiny birds. In fact, giant predator birds, archaeologists think. 12,000-year-old flutes found in Israel may be the earliest bird call whistles in the world. And look at them there. They just look like twigs. What for? To eat, presumably. Maybe also to wear their feathers in fashion that goes back almost 500,000 years. Isn't that interesting? Why archaic humans in Israel collected feathers 420,000 years ago. That's right, 420. 420. That's a number we know around here. Anyway. Right? The King David Jerusalem and other biblical archaeology discoveries. And there's a bunch of people digging it up. And some camels. Let's move on. First human ancestor came from Europe, not Africa, 7.2 million years ago. Fossils indicate. Oops! Looks like the whole story's collapsing of where humans came from. Because there was a bunch of different humans coming from evidently different places. And here's a paper that I got sent in my email that I'm going to be reading. And if it's worth a diddly squat, I'll read it to you guys. It's called Dead Men's Secrets, Tantalizing Hints of a Lost Super Race by Jonathan Gray. Have no idea what it was. I just keep getting sent these peer-reviewed papers and different stuff of things I signed up for. And wow. Anyway, rounding out the hour, scientists to deliver a warning about nuclear war with Doomsday Clock 2024 announcements. And like I was saying before, is there going to be a bunch of nerds from some other kind of Homo sapiens species in like 1,000 years digging us up saying, yeah, this is when they died from nuclear war because, they ate all that GMO and they had to take out all the DNA because it had been destroyed over years with massive amounts of epigenetics damage, mRNA, etc., etc. Yeah, I said that for you. That's right. There's a guy out there who knows what I'm talking about when I say etc., etc. I know it's etc., but I don't talk that way, so get over it, dude. It's almost that time again, time for the annual update of the Doomsday Clock, the symbol for how close the world is to civilization-ending catastrophe. First set in 1947, the doomsday clock warns humanity about how close or how far we are to destroying our world with our own dangerous technologies, like those little rocks on the leather straps. Remember what you think they were back then, man? The end of the world's coming, man. I saw like 15 dudes, and they had a bag of rocks, man. They had a bag of rocks, and they weren't selling the rocks, and they weren't smoking the rocks, man. They was like spinning them and then killing people with them. Anyway, we are destroying our world with our own dangerous technologies. It is a metaphor, a reminder of the perils we must address if we are to survive on the planet. According to the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, which set the symbolic time each January. In recent years, the clock settings have mostly reflected the risk of nuclear war. Nuclear war, man. Nuclear war. And the dangers of uncontrolled climate change. You knew that pesky climate change was going to get in there somehow. Right? That pesky climate change. By the way, how you guys doing out there across the world with that super warm climate change, global warming that's been freezing everybody's buttocks recently, at least in the U.S., as our little polar vortex came down and, gave us all that global warming goodness. This year, the clock will be updated Tuesday, January 23rd at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in Washington, D.C. The last announcement in January 2023 came before the beginning of the Israel-Hamas war, but amid nuclear tension surrounding Russia and their involvement in Ukraine. I think they wouldn't mind blowing up a few cities. I mean, it'd get them out of trouble. They'd have a whole new era of, rebuilding stuff. They could yell, "Never forget," till we all barf again. Here's a funny one. I thought, for you guys out there that believe in weather modification, Trump ally Laura Loomer brutally mocked online for claiming that Nikki Haley is using weather to steal the Iowa caucus. And if you don't know, Trump won the Iowa caucus, so there you go for that. If anybody was thinking Nikki, I don't like Trump because of Warp Speed. I think it's all made for TV at this point. I'm sorry, I really think it's all central casting. Maybe there is some degree of independence in these people, but they're tied down so much with promises and links to organizations that I don't think that anybody at that level could ever reach or attain power in the United States without having 10,000 strings reached and, being pulled on from their butt. But anyway, never Nikki. Let's pretend that the voting is real. And I'm going to go with, Rand Paul, who says never Nikki. I don't think we need another neocon in office, and I'm not down with her. Now, Trump, hey, if you guys want Daddy Warbucks to sell you some more of those medicine jabs instead of dabs, you go right ahead. But what is the alternative in your belief system? If you believe that these things are real, you got what? That sniffing pedophile looking dude that goes around sniffing all the children. Who you got? You got that communist guy from California, Newsom. You got old Funky Feet from Florida. You got what's his name? DeSantis. Who else you got? Nikki Haley. Give me a break. Get out of here. Get out of here with that. Get out of here with the neocons. Basically, Nikki Haley's like Hillary Clinton for the Republicans. Let's go to war. Let's go to war. Let's go to war. Let's go to war. Don't you guys that are out there in the Democrat and Republican parties ever get sick of your leaders doing the exact same thing as the other party, but sitting around bitching and whining about how the other people do it? Anyway, that's the end of the break. We'll see you back in a second. Oh, not end of the break. That's the end of the segment. There we go. Now we're muted on the radio, and we'll be back here in about 5 minutes for your viewing pleasure. Let's see here. Here we are.
Today, the demand for gold continues to flourish globally. History proves that fiat paper money is designed to go to zero through inflation, whereas gold has intrinsic value in which it maintains forever. Paper money is a debt instrument. Gold is an asset of wealth in its own right. It does not depend upon any governments, corporations, or individuals' promise to repay. ITM Trading has spent the last 27 plus years developing a team of expert researchers and analysts to make this possible. Simply put, we build strategies which are historically proven to protect your wealth and assets through any economic downturn or currency collapse. Schedule your free gold and silver strategy call 866-834-1422. That's 866-834-1422. Or go to learn.itmtrading.com/MIAC and keep watching Mountain High Time and Mini Ice Age Conversations if you know what's good for you.
Imagine, if you will, a glimpse into the possible outcome of a million mistakes. What you are about to watch is a nightmare. It is not meant to be prophetic. It need not happen. It's the fervent and urgent prayer of all men of goodwill that it never shall happen. But in this place, in this moment, it does happen. In the midst of it comes unexpectedly over the phone the announcement of the President of the United States, the warning from the very top declaring a state of emergency of suspected enemy missiles approaching. It's anyone's guess where they might land. What city will be obliterated? How many could be lost? And last but not least, will it be me? Will it be my family, friends, my square inch on the map? Minutes go by and nothing. Right as you exhale a breath of relief, an instant wave of horror treks down your spine and a sinking feeling in the pits of your stomach. Just then the power goes out. The only light you see is the glow of your phone. Shining in your face, the icons of terror. Low battery, and even more frightening, the symbol for connection to information and loved ones gone. You try the landline in your office, desperate to contact family. Nothing at all, just a bone-chilling empty silence. Panic-stricken, you blindly forage for your car keys. Success. Something in this nightmare of a day has gone right. Now it's a desperate mad dash for your car. Your mind now in a near intellectual paralysis. Logic a struggle as you cope with a Gatling gun barrage of horrific ideas of what your family might be going through in this very moment. Miraculously, your car starts and you begin your seemingly apocalyptic drive to locate your kin. As you pass the first stop sign, the sight of civic decay is already bearing its nasty head as you speed past fights in the streets, looting, and a complete halt of any semblance of an evolved civilization. To your right, a large fire. As angry, fear-filled citizens with their arms full of grocery items run from what used to be your local food market, ran by a mom and pop's couple, now collapses into a bonfire of dreams. Because of the commotion, your attention span has been stolen. Now before your automobile is a violent crowd. They have now surrounded your car, banging on the metal, bashing at the glass, screaming incoherently. What just a second ago was the road to salvation, now a deadly trap of circumstance and fear blocking your escape. This can't be happening, repeatedly echoing in your head as you start to mumble the phrase in a shrieking, inaudible, childlike tone to yourself. The trepidation now filling your lungs like a poison fog, suffocating and smothering in its certainty. Just then, as your heart and soul seem to be having synergistic perturbations, an alarm blares, overwhelming your senses. Immediately you recall the warning of missiles. You close your eyes and expect the end. But the alarm morphs into a sweet, familiar beckoning of your alarm clock. You open your eyes and switch off the welcoming timepiece. A warm filling of relief as you realize your family is safe in their beds, and no pending doom is written in the stars today. For a split second, you ponder the poor people of your vision, and it reinforces your confidence that you have already prepared for the any scenario. You have peace of mind your children will eat and thrive, because you invested in their future to give some stability if any break in the normality of life happens. You invested in heaven's harvest. The you in this story was a fictional you. But do you get the feeling something unthinkable is going to happen soon? I sure do. The problem is we probably won't see it coming. One morning you'll wake up and the world will be a much different place. Don't panic, prepare. Smart folks are investing in emergency food now. A wise man once said, "It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it." Heaven's Harvest is the nation's leader in emergency food storage. It's the only investment you get 100% of your money for, even better than gold. Survival experts recommend the 3-month emergency food kit. Go to heavensharvest.com, use the code ADAPT at checkout, and save a mind-blowing 15%.
And welcome back to Revolution.Radio. This is Mountain High Time, and you're listening to me, That's your host, Ransom Godwin. This is the place where it's the same as the time. It's Mountain High Time. And I hope the weather is partly cloudy for you guys out there. It is for me. Dab, dab, dab. Excuse me. Oh, let's see. Where were we? Let me look in the chat and see what's going on here. Two cheeks to the same hashtag. No, I'm just joking. So what's going on? What are you guys talking about in there? You guys are just hitting it, aren't you? You guys are just toking it and stuff. Dabs, not jabs. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. So let's get into some more cool news and articles that I found interesting. So, there's a lot of different opinions about who peoples were. For some reason, the whole world is fascinated with these identity politics from thousands of years ago. And it kind of is irrelevant in today's world, but yet, people still argue about it. So I kind of try to stick to the DNA analysis for my opinions on who was who and when and where they were. So DNA analysis here, right here, of Minoans and Mycenaeans, genetic origins right here. So there's a lot of argument about, say, who built the pyramids, what Egyptians look like in pre-pharaonic times and pharaonic times compared to now, what the people look like in the Levant in the ancient past compared to now. And people have a hard time understanding that demographics can change over time. However, their genetic traces may be mixed into new and different populations. At some point, North Africa was occupied by some pretty pale people, and I know a lot of people get upset about this idea, but we have genetic evidence, paintings, frescoes, etc., etc. I mean, there's just so much overwhelming evidence about who was who and where they were and when. That we know certain groups kind of diffuse civilization out to the rest of the world, and upon meeting them, they were Stone Age populations still. And some of that happened all the way up into today's era. I mean, as we were talking about before, there's still Stone Age civilizations out there. So for those of you out there that hear that argument that, they couldn't have, high technology in the ancient past because look, we're finding these stone tools and this and that, so they had to have been primitive. The problem with that is today's world has Stone Age civilizations living side by side with technologically advanced civilizations all over the world, from the Amazon to Africa. So for the first time, scientists have recently obtained genetic material and analyzed genome sequences from the ancient Minoans and Mycenaeans. If I say that, I always mess up that. But anyway, let's just go with the Minoans, who lived there 5,000 years ago. The new analysis suggests that the Minoans share a great deal of their genetic heritage with these the Mycenaeans. I don't know how to say that. Here, let's find out. I'm going to just copy that. Let's see how the robot says it here. So you guys might get an echo. Doo-dee-doo-doo. If it'll load. No, I want to hear it out loud, man. I know you guys, there we go. You guys probably are super educated and already know how to say it, but, I like to find out. Here we go. Play it. What's going on? It's not playing. Here we go. Oh, I need my headphones. That's why. Here we go. You gonna play it?
Mycenaeans.
I thought so. But my brain kept trying to mess it up anyway. Anyway, let's get back to that. Wrong thing. Yeah, I got so many tabs open, I get lost there. There we go. The wrong one. Wrong one again. Here we go. So the Mycenaeans, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, now we're back on air, now that we're educated and I'm sure about how to pronunciate it. Look, now it's making me mess up the other one. The Minoans and the Mycenaeans share a great deal of their genetic heritage. Dr. Islif Lazardis from the Harvard Medical School in Massachusetts and colleges focused on burials from the Minoan civilization, which flourished on the island of Crete. They got killed by like a big tsunami, earthquake, volcano thing. Anyway, from 2,600 years ago to 1,100 BC, the Mycenaean culture, which existed across Greece from 1600 to 1100 BC. Dr. Laza explained that the most of the people who created these civilizations appear to be locals, deriving between 62% and 86% of their ancestry from people who introduced agriculture to Europe from Anatolia, modern Turkey, in Neolithic times beginning about 7,000 years ago. Genetic differences and similarities between the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, but the Bronze Age Mycenaeans and the Minoan skeletons reveal ancestry from populations originating in either the Caucasus Mountains, that's right, Caucasians, or Iran. Between 9% and 17% of their genetic makeup come from this source. In addition, these team papers of the Journal of Nature reports that the Mycenaeans, but not the Minoans, show evidence of genetic input from people who lived further north on a flat grassland that stretches from Eastern Europe to Central Asia. I don't know. That might be those same, people that came out of the steppe and introduced their culture into India as well, that brought the horses and, the wheels and all that stuff, buggies and language. Anyway, between 4% and 16% of their ancestry came from this northern source, while Mycenaeans are known to have spoken an early form of Greek. The earliest recorded language spoken by the Minoan people on Crete, known as Linear A, can be read but not translated, implying that it belongs to a distinct but unknown group of languages, not coming from the same source that almost every other language comes from. Modern Greeks, descendants of Mycenaeans, after genetic analysis, the Mycenaeans have also been linked to modern-day Greek people. New emerging DNA evidence that suggests that living Greeks are indeed descendants of the ancient Mycenaeans who ruled mainland Greece and the Aegean Sea from 1600 BC to 1200 BC. The evidence comes from the study in which scientists analyzed the genes from the teeth of 19 people across various archaeological sites with mainland Greece and Mycenae. A total of 1.2 million letters of genetic code were compared with those of 334 people across the world. Genetic information was also compiled from the groups of 30 modern Greek individuals in order to compare it to the ancient genomes. This allowed researchers to effectively plot how individuals related to one another. Now, I'm sure if you were paying attention, and you're not a goldfish, I pointed out that, sometimes in these fields, when they say something's totally a certain way, your deductive logic and reasoning should kick in there. When they're using these small percentages of stuff and small amounts of people tested, doesn't mean conclusively that all the people at the time were of a certain kind, or that all of the people of now are a certain kind or of a certain descendant. That's idiotic to think. You can't go into a genome of like hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people and test 334 people and say, well, it matches. That's effectively, we know they were the same people, period. Those were only, how many individuals did they say on the island? No. Let's go back up here. 4% of 16% of their ancestry. No, that's not it. I forgot where it was, but it's a very small amount of people there that they tested, and then a very small amount of people in modern times that they tested. So you can see that if you wanted to have a bias in this information, it would be very easy to do that. However, let's talk about the art, which has nothing to do with the people picked or the people tested of DNA, but is versions or could be versions of the way it was in life back then. And again, you're only finding a small percentage of these things, which means that other houses, other things that are destroyed might have had a different kind of art or a different history depicted on the walls of the same place at the same time in the ancient past. And indeed, we actually see that happening in Egypt, where there are places that we've unearthed propaganda from some of the kings and pharaohs at the time, telling their people within their borders that they had won wars that they were losing. And the archaeology says, while they were losing that war, they were shrinking in territory while being attacked. But yet, they were putting out propaganda. So you can't trust anything totally. However, when you look at the Minoans, the Mycenaeans, the ancient Egypt, people depicted on the wall, what you see usually is the men depicted as red or brown or olive, depending on the fading of the paint. Most likely the red was some form of red ochre that they were smearing across their skins, and or, I don't know about you, I'm a pretty white dude. Like I said, we're going to test the DNA and find out exactly what. I know I'm part Greek, actually. I know I have some German, Irish, English, Welsh, Dutch, possibly some Native American, other things that I probably have no idea, no clue about in my ancestry. Those are just based on names in a family tree, those groups, and the assumption of who they were and who their parents were. Because you got to keep in mind, just because something's written down doesn't mean that, Uncle Jojo wasn't, doing some time behind the woodshed with the neighbor, and he's actually the daddy and things like that. We don't know. We weren't there. But anyway, so they're saying for the first time they've obtained material, genetic material that they could test. But when you look, like I said, at the artwork depicted at the times, you always see the men represented as red, brown, olive, whatever you want to call it. But the women were almost always pale white. And that makes sense because they had a softer life. They were probably inside in the shade more and had no need to either be tanned, sunburned, or wear red ochre all over their skin. As, I don't know if that was some kind of more about culture, or it was more about, trying to keep their skin from burning. But there's a lot of people out there that are saying, these ancient peoples were different kind of peoples than they are based on what we find. So most likely, almost everybody looked like this in the Mediterranean at one time, at least in these groups. Need I say more? Anyway, let's move on to some funner stuff. Human head found in a deep freezer in Grand Junction front lawn. How about that? Grand Junction, Colorado. Authorities are investigating a possible homicide after a human head was found in a deep freezer in a front yard on Pinon Avenue. Mesa County Sheriff's Office deputies responded to reports of suspicious incident on Pinon Avenue about 2:30 p.m. January 12th. New homeowners were cleaning out various leftover belongings at the recently sold house and discovered a bag with a possible remains inside. Authorities have since confirmed it was indeed a human head. This is an active MCSO, I guess that's Mesa County Sheriff's Office, investigation with no further information available at this time. Officials believe there is no ongoing threat to the community. Well, except for somebody that cut somebody's head off and put it in a freezer there in Colorado. I guess there's no threat. That's weird because even where I live, some of the things are not reported on the news, and it boggles my mind. Like, one article will talk about this guy that lives not too far from me that got in trouble because he chopped up somebody after killing them and put them in a bunch of buckets and left them out in his front yard on a main fairway, just right out there for people to walk by, drive by, just right out there in the front yard, no big deal. And then they're stabbing people's and, dying in their cars, getting stabbed to death and things like that, not getting reported to the local news. Very bizarre. So I don't know what that's about, why they're picking and choosing like that. Anyway, Tesla owners complain they are stuck in car graveyards with batteries not charging. And let me tell you, if the future stays the same as it has been for your entire lifetime, or a variation of the weather that has existed since you've been alive, these electrical vehicles are just not going to work. Let's just face it. They only work where it's warm. They're not going to work any place that's getting cold. And it's a joke. All of these people stranded, and then the machines won't charge their battery. The battery won't take a charge. They're stuck. They're carless. And why would you ever do that to yourself when there's an abundance of fossil fuel and fossil fuel powered cars that are not destroying the environment? Guess what? Every ice age ever ended, and almost all of those didn't have anything to do with man. Well, I'm going to say all of them really didn't have anything to do with man. So any weather pattern that we're foreseeing, whether it gets hot or whether it gets cold, it just ain't going to matter, because a lot of places on the planet will continue to get cold. Once every time the climate changes every year, we call winter. So we know that this technology, it sucks right now. And, well, guess what? I wouldn't buy an electric car. So I wouldn't put your money in these companies that are saying the future of, driving is an electric car. Yeah, they want to force us to drive it, and think about what that means. If they talked everybody in or made it law or mandated it where everybody had to have an electric car or take the transit system that was electric, and guess what? You better get used to being in your 15-minute city, because all of that stuff's going to fail every winter. Every time there's a blackout or this or that's happening, you're going to see all of these technologies completely shut off. And I put to you that that's exactly the plan. Think about it. Some big weather event happens and every single person has electric cars. Guess what's going to happen? Civilization will be at a standstill until it warms up and people fix everything. Now, this article that it was just in here to demonstrate something, and I kind of had it out of order here, but let's check it out anyway. If you've ever heard me talking with people on my shows and I'm talking about a tiki pose, this is what I'm talking about. So all through Polynesia, there's these stone megalithic, and some of them modern, and some of them not very big, but what you usually see is these bizarre characters. And if you can see right there, let me zoom this in a little bit for you guys. You're going to see this guy, just like on Easter Island and in Göbekli Tepe and all kinds of Native American, European, Asian sites, where these ancient figures are grabbing their belly. And it's what's called, in some circles, why I say it, as a tiki pose, because you see it on these tikis all through Polynesia. And you see this wooden one right here, looks just like an Easter Island moai. They do come in different variations, but almost always you will see the arms down to the sides cradling the belly. So you see that here, you see that here on one side, but he's holding a staff. And this guy's got a drum, so I think this is a modern one, but you'll always see this tiki pose, and you can see it on this old stone artifact here. You can see it on their little chess pieces. You see it on here. You see it at Göbekli Tepe. You see it and all kinds of what are called Olmec statues. And then you see it on the Easter Island Moai statues. You see the same thing, what's called a tiki pose. Now, keep that in mind when you're looking at these ancient sites, and tell me if that's not something that's another obvious thing, like the swastika and other things that were transferred to almost everybody worldwide at the same time. And it seems to be that in this ancient time, and I'm going to go ahead and say that time was 40 to 50,000 years ago, everybody was meeting each other and they were giving each other information, and humans were carrying information to these new groups that they were meeting, other kinds of humans, and they were transferring information, not only genetics, but information. Imagine what Homo sapien in those times learned from the other humanoids that they came across. I imagine that they learned where to hunt, they learned how to live in that ecosystem, and they probably learned a lot from them, and they disappeared, so I guess they didn't learn much from us. Anyway, what are we learning today, and how's it going down in the world right now? Because, I don't have much faith in the educational system, knowing that educational institutions around the country are no longer passing children through based on merit or education. Instead, they're just giving them a pass. It's the everybody gets a trophy kind of thing, but, now first it was for participation in things. And so everybody could feel good. But now the trend is to just pump out a bunch of idiots, complete morons, uneducated people that went to school but did not learn everything. And this is happening in all demographics. So don't think that, if you're from one particular group or another, that one group's being attacked more. No, it's a complete dumbing down of the entire civilization. And this stood out to me. I haven't even read it yet, but let's read it. And keep in mind that there are places like in Oregon and California, Washington, various places around the country that are allowing people to get jobs and people to pass tests and people to graduate and get letters behind their names that didn't actually earn it, but they needed a percentage to get through of a certain type so that we could all be, die, I guess, that certain people should die. That's almost like a joke, but I think it's actually DIE, or is it DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, which I think is stupid because, let's say it was World War II and you had a bunch of candidates that would pass out with a little bit of G-forces, and they couldn't run the guns, and they couldn't figure out the plane that good. They could do some basic flying, but you wouldn't want to go into a dogfight with them. But they're saying, hey, you know what? We got to have a percentage of everyone in here, so they got to get represented equally. It doesn't matter who can actually fly the plane or not. We're just going to pick a certain amount of people, and we're just going to put them in the job and hope for the best. Well, you know what? I, for one, don't want to participate in those things. And no offense to anybody, but I want the best person, regardless of ethnicity. You know what? I don't care if they're sexual persuasion. I don't care what they're tripping on. If they are good at the task that involves my life, then I want them doing it. The best person in the position. And if not the best person, then the next best person, and so on and so on. You're not going to go out there or think about it like this. You're a caveman, hunter-gatherer, and then there's Fred, and Fred gets a kill every time his wife's happy in their cave. And you got this other guy, Bob. Bob kind of sits around scratching his butt. He doesn't know how to make a point. He really doesn't contribute anything. He's always begging for food. And you take him out hunting, guess what? You're probably not going to come back with much to eat, and your wife's going to be mad, and your kids are going to go hungry. And you know what? Somebody's going to move along and kick you out of their cave that can actually support things. But I digress. Game of Life, one of the world's best universities, is teaching students how to get good at video games. And they misspelled get and good for whatever reason. I guess, I guess Generation X is the new old people that doesn't understand crap, or at least we're emerging into that lane of existence where younger and younger people are going to think that we are morons, even though we're the last vestiges of civilization on Earth. We've often been told to stop playing video games and told to do something productive like studying, but now you're able to do both. One of the world's top 10 universities is now offering course in playing video games as an option for students. That's right. Just pacify them. Pacify them, right? Tell them whatever they believe is correct. You can be a unicorn. You can be a dragon. You can be a dog. You can be a man, a woman, a they, a them, a it, or they, whatever. You can be an alien. You can identify as a amoeba if you want to do that now, But in my day, as Generation X, I would go to my friend's house when I was a little kid, or and they were over there. They were playing He-Man. They were like, "I'm He-Man and you're Skeletor, but I can fly. I can fly." And I'm like, "Dude, but He-Man can't fly." "Yeah, but I'm imagining it, so you got to imagine it with me." No thanks, buddy. How about if I go ride my bike or something, and I don't pretend with you, because I don't have to. And nowhere in the Constitution does it say that I have to pretend with you. So you can be mentally ill, and you can believe you're a purple fox flying through the universe. You can believe you're God. You can be the most legend in your own mind that you can be, but I don't have to believe that. So I'm not going to believe that people that made it through supposed educational procedures and institutions to come out with a little piece of paper that says that they graduated, but it doesn't mean crap, because they're just picking people and shoving them through. Now, first they were only taking people that made the cut. Then they started saying, you know what, that's not fair to certain people. Let's put a certain amount of people in there. Okay, that's basically everybody was like, whatever with that. Okay. But now they're saying, you know what, if they're mentally ill, or they're crazy, or they believe they're a dragon on a tooth fairy riding on, a 1920s ski boat going through the galaxy at Mach 10, you have to believe that with them. No, thank you. Anyway, I digress. Back to the article. The Art of Fighting Games is a course at the University of California, Berkeley. You remember that place where free speech and all that stuff tried to come through? Now it's just, what? Anyway, rated the 8th best university in the world by morons. Excuse me, did I say that out loud? That was not in the article. Excuse me. I want to, pull that back and rewrite that there. Beating out elite British universities like Imperial College London and UCL, it is highly respected. The course offers a number of benefits, such as teaching you how to play fighting games and improve on your form. It also claims to teach people more about the history and culture of Japan, the gaming industry, as well as some basic Japanese. Yo, stashimashi. graduating from the course is broken down into 4 parts, including attendance, homework, fighting, tournaments, and final project. The tournaments are not based on how many games you win. Well, of course not on merit, but on how well you can reflect on the mistakes you've made while playing the game. Isn't that nice? Look, they're even making a game. Man, this is how insane it is. I mean, think about this. They have a course to teach video games instead of something productive, something beneficial, and you don't even have to win. Of course you don't. You participated. 4 + 4 = 5 if you know that, it's racist to do math. Durr. Really, we're losing it. And in the backdrop, don't worry about it because all these dumb people are about to get killed. That's right. What are they doing with millennials and Generation Z that they have, just misled totally about how life is? They got life all effed up. But don't worry about it. NATO announces months-long exercise with 90,000 troops. NATO announced Thursday that it would begin its largest military exercise in decades next week, involving 90,000 troops and testing all the allies' ability over months to engage in a conflict with adversaries like Russia, which is not my adversary. They're not, as far as I know, I was cool when they knocked down the wall and started, running the pizza commercials and being capitalists and saying they wanted to be friends with the United States. But, NATO and the United States said, you know what, we're bored and we missed the good old days and when we were enemies, so you're going to be an enemy again. That's why we built a bunch of, bases next to you, even though we agreed not to. But you're the bad guy. You're the bad guy. Maybe they are the bad guy. I don't care. Why are we building bases over there? I don't want to fight them. I don't want to fight for the Ukrainians. And now that the Ukrainians spent their youth, they want other countries' youth. They want our youth. They want my youth to go over there and die for their stupid banker war. No thanks. How about that? How about go suck a rotten egg? Anyway, Steadfast Defender 2024 will run to late May and involve units from all 31 NATO member countries plus candidate member Sweden, U.S. General, the Times. I almost said Jennifer Crystal, but it's General Christopher Cavoli, NATO's supreme allied commander, Europe told journalists. The exercise, compounded of a series of smaller individual drills, will span from North America to NATO's eastern flank close to Russian border. It will involve 50 naval vessels, 80 aircraft, and over 1,100 combat vehicles. The U.S.-led alliance has dispatched thousands of troops to its eastern flank and draw up most expensive plans since the collapse of the Soviet Union to protect itself from Russia. That sounds like if you're sitting at home and you're like, you know what? I'm totally terrified and I'm batshit scared of cougars. And then, so to prove that you're scared of cougars, you get you and 40 of your guys to go up with a bunch of sticks and poke a cougar in the wild that you would have never come across normally because your territory doesn't really border it or whatever, but no, let's go into its lair and poke it with a stick and then say, hey, how dare you? Stop hitting me. Stop hitting me. Anyway, let's move on. Could UK be drawn into a war? 3 threats that could spark World War III. Could it? It's already dropping bombs in the Middle East. Ominous warnings from Russia, missile strikes in the Middle East, and uneasy diplomacy in China. The threat of World War III has never loomed larger. In a chilling speech on Monday, Defense Minister Grant Shapps declared that the international relations have entered a new era. We must prepare to deter our enemies, prepared to lead our allies, and prepared to defend our nation whenever call comes, he said. Shapps said Russia, China, and Iran pose serious threats, calling them unstable and irrational. I guess that's why they keep attacking us, and they built all those bases around our countries. Oh, I'm sorry. See, it's just messed up because, I don't hate these people. I don't agree with some of the forms of government. I don't want to go to China. I don't want to live in Iran. But are they really starting it with us, or are we starting it with them? Did they come and build bases around our countries, or did we build bases around their countries? Are we trying to control the area where they live, or are they trying to control the area where they live? Is there a Russian, Chinese, and Iranian representative at the city council in your local area deciding to up your taxes? I don't think so. But that could be, in the future, because on the one hand, while we say they're enemies, you have people in the administration of several different administrations making backdoor deals with China, Russia, and Iran. Because it's all a show. It's all central casting. There is only one government. It's already been founded. That happened on 2001, 9/11 of 2001, when they dropped the twins right there of the old world in front of Columbia as she watched upon and gave birth to the New World Order, the One World Order. And that's why they put that big old needle obelisk, Hathor-looking obelisk there in place of the Twin Towers, is because it's the new obelisk of the New World. The New World Order was born on 9/11, 2001. Why on 9/11? I mean, think about it. Two towers, 911. Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to this. It's not the first time that the UK politician alluded to war in recent months. Former Defense Secretary Ben Wallace and Britain would be at war by 2030 in an interview last year. With Russia, war in Ukraine no closer to an end, tensions rising in the Middle East, and a new president putting the spotlight back on Taiwan. Don't forget Israel, Gaza, and the rest of the Middle Eastern countries there, because, they're involved too. Could the UK be drawn into a conflict even sooner? I don't know. Aren't they already? I thought they were dropping bombs in the Middle East right now with the United States. Well, anyway, Germany, once a powerhouse, is at its economic standstill, according to this article here, which is funny. What do countries usually do when they're at an economic standstill? Well, they usually go to war. So it makes sense that a leaked German military document warns of World War III with Russia by 2025. Hundreds of thousands of troops deployed in Europe. Didn't I just read an article where NATO said they're already doing that right now as an exercise? Leaked classified documents from the German military have warned that a potential full-blown war between Russia and NATO, in which hundreds of thousands of troops are deployed in Europe. In other words, just like World War II, except for we picked a new enemy. We betrayed the last people that were on our team and sided with the other people that we supposedly beat and took all their people in, and we paper clipped them into a group, and then we made bombs, and we made groups like CIA and the Department of Education, and et cetera, and then we let their kids and their grandkids and their buddies create things like the NDAA and Project for a New American Century and, Homeland Security, brought to us by people like the Bushes and what's the little think tank, Karl Rove, who happens to be the son of an SS officer. And then think about it. We got NASA and all these other things built by who? The war machine of Germany from World War II. But that's okay. We don't have to pay attention to reality. We'll just pretend like we believe their story that they keep telling over and over about why things are the way they are, and not believe your own lying eyes. Under the scenario laid out by the German military, the Kremlin would begin a mobilization of 200,000 soldiers in February and launch renewed efforts to capture the Ukrainian capital of Kiev. So right here, you're hearing that the Germans, once allied to the Ukrainians before, if you remember, the Ukrainians were part of the Allied forces, allied to Russia, but then they switched sides in the middle of World War II and sided with the Nazis. And then after that, a bunch of their Nazis, the Ukrainian Nazis, got to stay in Ukraine. They didn't get Nuremberg trialed. They just remained there, and they had their own kids and their own grandkids who, seem to have taken power in 2014 with the color revolution, the little orange revolution that they had, in which they were openly showing that they were neo-Nazis and hailing Hitler, and weirdly funded by George Soros. The same guy that in World War II allied with a Nazi to snitch on other Jews for financial gain. he was, in fact, a sympathizer. There is an a news thing from, I think it was 60 Minutes out there, where he talks about it being the best time of his life. Wow. Meta joins rivals in pursuit of human-level AI. And this is where we're going to go for the next couple of minutes. How AI is about to take over, and how that means that radio like Revolution.Radio and YouTube channels like myself and some more that we're going to talk about are the last vestiges of real information from real people in a free, open way. Period. And I'll tell you how right here. Meta joins rivals in pursuit of human-level AI. They are in the pursuit of that AI. Here's a Washington Post article. The Davos elite embraced AI in 2023, but now they fear it, and they fear it because it's out there and other people can use it. So what does that mean? That means they're going to have to make some kind of world governing body to regulate artificial intelligence in the years 2024 and in the future. The Davos elite. And over here, AI fears creep into finance, business, and law. Same reason. So the World Economic Forum, don't worry about it. They're here to save us. They're going to make a governing board, a body of some kind to regulate that artificial intelligence. Now, why does that matter? Well, I'll show you in just a second. As robots, baristas, and AI chefs debut at the Vegas Tech Show, casino union workers fear for their jobs. And they should, because this is the future. This is what's going to replace you. If you haven't figured it out, they have a formula, and they need to reduce a certain letter in that formula, and it's you. You are the reduction, the net zero, the carbon that they want to remove. And they're going to replace a smaller population on Earth, probably about 500 million, with people that are servants that work for another class of technocratic elite that will be a separate species. And down on the ground, you will be the maintenancers, and you will live with the robots and the AI, and indeed you will work on it and become it and be part of it. Food deserts rise in Democrat-run cities as grocers leave in droves. Well, why are they leaving in droves? Well, they keep getting stolen from. They keep getting robbed. They keep getting their store burned down when people are not throwing revolutions and insurrections out there in the street, lighting everything on fire, saying down with the U.S. government and things. But I know that those were not insurrections. Those were just peaceful protests. But because of that, food deserts are coming in America, and I predicted this on the Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast when I talked about soon all of the retail or box stores are going to leave areas, and there will be only distribution centers with armed guards. And to get in there, you will have to have identification, and you will have to have a good credit score to be able to get the goods at those places. And what's going to happen for everyone else is there will be deserts of no food because no stores or outlets or retailers are going to sell it. But when they reopen, don't worry, there'll be single file things with facial recognition and biometrics. No employees, just robotics serving you and creating the things, packaging the things, cooking the things, and then giving it to you. And you will have no customer service. There will be a kiosk where you can pay and talk to the robot and the AI customer care that won't have the options that you need to fix your problem. And then they'll hang up on you. And guess what? If you get mean with the robot or get mad, they'll send another robot to find out why you're upset, because they've realized that you're emotionally upset. The fact that no people are there to talk to take care of you. But that's okay. Your AI cooked and sold to you burger might taste good from that printed out meat there. Anyway, let's move on, and I'll get back, if you're not a goldfish and you're still paying attention, to what I was talking about earlier. Japan announces successful slim lunar landing, 5th country to reach the moon service, according to them. Japan's lunar lander reaches the moon, but is rapidly losing power. Oh no, space agency says. Japan joins an elite club by landing on the moon. What are others doing? I don't know. Do we got some HD footage? Have they figured out how to send a GoPro to the moon or to Mars on a little robot so we could actually look at stuff in a little more high definition and actually look at interesting things like the horizon, the sky, objects and things like that, and stop looking at the ground or, rendering pictures from artists' conceptions along with computer-generated images of different filters that they picked up or whatever they like to do there. Anyway, American alligator frozen in ice as temperatures and textures plunge. Oh, so sorry about the global warming. Anyway, let's move on to this. Where was it? To get back to... Here it is. Why are they so worried about the AI? Why do they want to control the AI? Why are they censoring? Why are we in an era where the government has taken control of trying to control your thoughts by censoring outlets, voices, and groups from being able to say what they think or they feel or what they've discovered or to share factual information if it is so? Well, because they're going to destroy all forms of media and replace it with basically a AI. That means that all of the different companies will be putting out the same talking points like the teleprompter reading puppets have been doing for years, but now we don't need them. Now there's AI. Now we can build one from scratch that looks almost identical to a real person. And you could copy any voice you want, one that soothes, one that's believable, one that's trustworthy, and they can make these, and now we don't need human beings. So these woke-tards that worked at all of these companies, these media companies, magazines, news outlets, and all of that, literally helped facilitate the replacement of their own propaganda job that they had. So they'll be out on the street with no job eventually. There won't be human presenters anymore. There will only be articles and presenters that are reading AI and or are AI. And there will be no people that work at these places, yet they'll still continue to be published and presented to the public as if these opinions and ideas are coming from living human beings. Why do you think that everyone's firing everyone? Woke Sports Illustrated tells all employees they're fired. LA Times Guild calls emergency meeting as layoffs loom. This is the big one. Well, don't worry about it because they have AI. They have AI to tell you everything now. And they will be in the future. And here's this list of that they just came out. And we talked about it on many Ice Age conversations. I think that's this one. Here. And look at it and listen to this. This is a list of who they say you shouldn't listen to because they don't agree with man-made climate change. And when I looked through it, I just saw what I think is probably the best list of people that you would want to maybe start subscribing to their channel. They might be the last of the human presenters. Here we go. And I'm going to put that in all of the chats, I think. I think this will do it. So if you're listening on America in 4K or the Raven Wolf channel or on Rumble, I think you should also get this link. Okay. And it looks like you did. Cool. So here's the channels that you should probably, subscribe to, in my opinion. Look, ADH TV, Alan Jones. Academic Influence, Age of Truth TV, American Enterprise Institute, Andrew Clavin. I don't know who most of these people are. I know who some of them are, and I'll read them off. Like, let's see here. End Times, Epic TV, Freedom Works, Glenn Beck, Heritage Action. Let's see, the Hudson Institute, Human Progress, Hugo Kruger, Independent Institutes, Jim Steele, John Stossel, Jordan B. Peterson, Kim Iverson. Here's a 97.3 FM, Kiro Radio, Laughing at Liberals, Malcolm Reports, Manhattan Institute, Mr. Reagan. I mean, a lot of these are just mainstream media, too. Look, Newsmax. Here's my favorite one, the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, Paul Joseph Watson, PragerU. Let's see here. Reclaim the Net. I mean, all of these, some of these are very reputable news sources. Some of them, I don't know. Here's popular ones, Timcast, Tony Heller. I mean, here's a list of who's suspicious of observers. These are the people that they're telling you that you shouldn't listen to because you're not going along with the AI algorithm hoax narrative of every single narrative that they push, that you should only listen to authoritative sources for information and don't believe your lying eyes. And they like to hire all of these other sides that the founder of Greenpeace is on their list. But don't worry about it, because you should believe Patrick Stewart or Captain Picard, because he's famous and he's a socialist, and he can tell you that, it's man-made climate change, and you should believe him because he's famous. Remember, he was that socialist guy on Star Trek that flew around in the utopia of the communist future where there was no money, and they just went around absorbing everyone and making everyone the same because of diversification. We want to make sure we want to make everyone diversified by making them all the same. Center for Counterfeiting Digital Hate. The new climate denial people. How social media platforms and content producers profit by spreading news forms of climate denial. Not news forms, new forms of it. Anyway, back in the real world, Ecuador arrests hundreds in a bid to halt eruption of gang-based violence, because if you didn't know, the Central America is about to break out into a war zone, including northern South America. British troops in Ukraine would be a declaration of war, risking nuclear response, according to the Russians. We already knew that. Scheme emergence among U.S. allies after Yemen attacks. And guess what? We see the UK and the U.S. are already striking, as we've reported before. But look at some of these other countries that just joined in. The Netherlands, Australia, Canada, Bahrain, and who else? Together with attack perpetrated by Germany, Denmark, New Zealand, South Korea. These are all countries that are great. Aren't these all the countries that locked down and said that you don't have no freedom anyway? I digress. Who cares? Field trip in American first magic mushroom school. I thought this was cool. I'm not going to read you the article, but it is from The Guardian, so look it up and read about it. I've had my own magic mushroom school, man. I don't need no thinking school. I just went out and found them and ate them, dude. I don't know what you guys are tripping on. Anyway, they're going to replace all writers, all media outlets with AI in the next few years. So if you're not already subscribed to some of the people, and you're not already emailing them and finding out what's going on, and you're not connected to them, you may find that one day you just turn everything on and you can't find anybody, and there's no other opinions on any internet source in the metaverse or anywhere else. And if they continue to get rid of books and old files of books, the potential for a lost civilization increases. Volocopter flying taxi seeks to seduce Paris. A German company is seeking to use exposure generated by the Paris Olympics to overcome the opposition of local politicians and demonstrate that flying taxis can serve the French capital. But guess what? They're probably not going to let you have this. Instead, you'll probably see one of these fly into something and explode long before a successful taxi service is used by it. Think about it. They're trying to get rid of private and commercial ownership of drones and things like these, so that they're totally regulated by the military and the governments, so that they control all aspects of travel. That's just a fact. And besides that, how is this German company going to do anything except for maybe send these over and blow up Russians once World War III starts, when their company goes to war? I mean, their country. Excuse me. Freudian slip. China, scientists create a mutant virus. I'm not going to say the beginning of it, but you can all read it, and it sounds familiar because it's been going around for the last couple of years in a supposed pandemic. Chinese scientists create a mutant virus strain that attacks the brain and has a 100% kill rate in mice, as they admit there's a risk to spill over to humans. Well, thank God for that. As if there wasn't enough to worry about. The last days of barcode? Is it the last days? Yes, it is, because everything's going to be sent via AI through a shipping, and you're not going to be able to go to the store and use it, and therefore they don't need a barcode for the grocery store. And as I've talked about lots of times, if you see a UFO, do you know what you're seeing? And even if you saw a being crawl out of said UFO and walk down the street and it looked amphibian or reptilian or some other combination of weird stuff, how do you know it wasn't made in a lab? How do you know what you saw was even real? Look at this. Say if you went back 15 years ago and you showed this to people, they would lose their minds. I'm going to mute it. I think it's muted. There we go. And play it. But anyway, they were tricking people with the Samsung drone show, massive Samsung drone show with colorful whirling lights, mistaken for UFO. Well, it was mistaken for a UFO because they animated a UFO with the lights. But think about, and times before, when people thought they saw things like this, could it have been just early military drones making and creating optical illusions to drive the public insane? Insane Las Vegas law might jail people for taking photos. That's right. Don't worry about your First Amendment or anything. People hoping to take some great photos in Las Vegas better have their wrist lubricated for the handcuffs that might come out. Now, I'm sure many of you saw the headline and must be thinking to yourself, how the hell can taking a photo in Las Vegas result in possible jail time? Surely this must be a joke. I'm back from Las Vegas after 5 days of pure anarchy and chaos. Porn star drama, a pissed off comedian trashing America, coolest bar you've ever heard of, 9/11 remembered at a World War II tank talk. Did I break my ankle? I don't even get what that's somebody's. I thought it was part of the article. Evidently not. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish that was the case, but unfortunately I have some dark news to share. A new city ordinance is in effect that bans stopping, standing, or engaging in an activity that causes other persons to stop on certain areas of the Strip. That includes the awesome pedestrian bridges, according to Men's Journal. The measure extends 20 feet surrounding connected stairways, elevators, and escalators. The exemption to ordinance is anyone who is waiting for the elevators, escalators, or stairs. That will keep you out of metal bracelets. In other words, if you're not moving, you can't take a photo. That's not that bad, but I think it's going to get thrown out. Who says I have to, be moving to exercise my First Amendment? I don't think so. Why ditching caffeine might be the best move for long-term health, according to study finds. So I'm going to go ahead and say, screw you, study finds. I don't even care what you have to say. And I'm going to take another drink of coffee right now. Refreshing. New utopian enclave? Or a testimony to inequality? Yada, yada, yada. Something about Guatemala City being, a nice place, except for all the people they sent on, transit up to the north with certain tattoos and military ages and whatnot. Soldiers. Oh, Freudian slip. That's a new article. Sorry. If you don't know when I'm starting. I wasn't talking about all those people coming in the U.S. with all the tattoos and the weird numbers and, affiliations and whatnot. I wasn't talking about that. Soldiers enter key Ecuador prison amid war on narcos. Official. The Ecuadorian Army and police on Thursday launched operation in a vast penitentiary complex in the port city of Guayaquil, the nerve center of the government's war on drug gangs. Army and police personnel are carrying out a new intervention to notably control the internal perimeters of the penitentiary center, the Army said in a press release. And if you notice, Guatemala and El Salvador they ain't been playing with the groups that are infiltrating the United States. We don't prosecute them. We let them go around, molest people, rape people, rob people, kill people, whatever. It's okay. They're just dreamers. Don't worry about it. But in their host country where they came from, whoa, their country is not playing. And they are not playing with their country. Prosecutors probing gang-related Ecuadorian TV studio attack is killed. Oh, sorry about that. I guess you won't be, prosecuting nothing there. New cancer cases projected to top 2 million, hit record high in 2024. That's right. The population's about to go down, and nobody's going to find out why. Don't worry, though. We'll have lots of races for the cure. We'll wear our little ribbons for the cure. We'll donate to those people that say they're trying desperately to find a cure, but we'll never talk about what causes it. And I've been saying that for at least 10 years now. When's the last time or the first time that you've ever seen a race to find the cause of a disease? Never. Not never. That's when I'm going to tell you not never. Now, I've heard some other radio hosts also say that. So the idea is catching on because the idea is obvious. Why don't they want to find the cause? Well, it's pretty obvious because our whole medical system is to treat symptoms. They don't care if you live or die. They make money from treating you. So if 2 million more people have cancer, That's great for them. They already have like a 90, I don't know how much it is. I think it's like 90 billion. You can go ahead and fact check me. Maybe it's 9 billion, whatever it is. It's in the billions of dollars of profit from people dying miserably from cancers that didn't even used to exist in the world before this one that we live in now, which probably started about 1945 and up, when cancers just increasingly started and kept prevailing. And now everybody's wondering why everybody's getting these cancers. And, I guess that's all the time we got. And last story, 20-year-old murdered by illegal alien sues Biden for $100 million. He's one of those soldiers with the numbers and the letters. That's all for Mountain High Time. Thanks for listening. But for you guys on YouTube, I'm still going. Right? Family of autistic woman, 20, murdered by illegal alien, sues Biden administration for $100 million. And those are those nice guys I was talking about that for some reason down in the Central American countries, their government is now taking care of those guys. And I thought this was a interesting article right here. California elections worker opens fentanyl-laced envelope. Maybe, if you work for the government, you might put a little birdie in to all of those Marxist people that run California that maybe, just maybe, we should stop the flow of fentanyl, and then maybe people won't be having enough money or enough power to send a laced envelope full of it to you. Oh, doesn't that suck when the problem that you created starts to affect you? Oil prices are about to soar. OPEC gets bullish on global demand, and you can expect your gasoline to go up. Tesla's AI cars crash more than gas-powered cars. I already knew that, but don't worry about it. You think there might be something in common, but don't worry about it. You won't crash if you can't start your car in the middle of winter because of the global warming. Multi-billion-dollar bet that truckers will ditch diesel for electricity. Sounds stupid, right? Because of the Tesla thing and all the electric cars dying. But guess what? Hear me out. I bet the leaders of this here nice nation would absolutely put everything electric. Then, whenever a winter storm comes in, guess what? Your electric trucker, he ain't delivering the food to the supermarket because his car won't start, because his truck won't start. Does that sound like a good idea to you? Or do you want the classic diesel that warms up and has a nice heater and keeps on trucking through the weather? I don't know. I think I might like the other one. I'm just saying. The true cost of Chinese solar panels. The Biden administration's green industrial policy was put to the test last year. Even with the support of subsidies and tariffs, U.S. solar manufacturing struggled to compete with the flood of cheap solar panels pouring out of China into the global market. While some argue that the U.S. should loosen restrictions on cheap Chinese solar panels to accelerate renewable energy deployment, this approach is unsustainable. Well, guess what? China would produce these for cheap prices because they have all the rare earth minerals that it takes to build these, and we don't. So they can outproduce these until we go out of business and then charge the regular amount that it actually cost for them. So how about that? Billionaires wanted to save the news industry. They're losing a fortune, but don't worry about it. They'll reinvest in AI, and then the AI will take over. I like this one. I'm going to close on this one because this is a 420 story. Man tried to swap drugs for fried pickles. January 19th, the Buffalo Wild Wings had closed late Sunday when Justin Carpenter pulled up to the Lawrence, Indiana restaurant around midnight looking for food. Fried pickles, to be exact. In an ill-advised bid to get the kitchen reopened, Carpenter, 25, posed a barter exchange to the B-Dubs employees, two of whom were minors. As alleged by police, Carpenter offered drugs to the Buffalo Wild Wings workers in exchange for fried pickles. Carpenter, who was wearing an ankle monitor as a result of a prior drug arrest, offered marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, and a vape cartridge containing THC, according to the workers interviewed by the cops. You know what's so funny about this? There is this Wingstop? No, this is Buffalo. Anyway, there's a Wingstop next to the dispensary where we live, where you can stop and buy a cartridge with THC, and you can be offered a marijuana, and you can buy that marijuana, and then you can smoke that marijuana, and you can eat your fried pickles. I think Buffalo Wild Wings across the street. So it's funny. This hardcore criminal in this state ain't nobody here. Now, of course, cocaine and ecstasy are still illegal where I live, but the rest of it was a everyday thing, man. Sweden calls for population to prepare for war. Sparks panic and criticism. Well, it should spark panic because your neighbors are trying to have World War III with our neighbors. Ain't that nice? U.S. home sales decline as lowest in 30 years. American cite economic suffering. Or it could be that the prices are just way crazy. I looked at a house that was made in, or actually it's a mobile home in a smaller lot than mine. And the thing was built like 1963, and they want $125,000 for it. I'm like, what? No thanks. That's why nobody's moving into it, because it ain't worth that. It's like worth, I think I bought my lot that's bigger in the same neighborhood with a more modern house for like 30 grand. You know, now that was a few years ago, but wow, $125,000 for a trailer house in a neighborhood full of trailers? No thanks. Anyway, that's all I got for Mountain High Time. Thanks for watching. And like I said, if you feel like helping out this channel, keep the lights on and maybe, get back into the road trips game. Can't do it on my own, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, peace out, and we'll see you next time here on Mountain High Time. Thanks for joining me. Puff, puff, pass, pass, and I hope the weather is cloudy where you're at, because it's about to be here.
Are you trying to tell me you're gay or something?
Gay, straight, retarded. Why do we have to put labels on everything?
Because we do alright, or else no one's going to know what the f***'s going on.
Aha! Aha! What do you know from funny, you bastard?